Hey guys, what's going on? My name is MajiinBae. Welcome back to the channel. So today we were going to do the deck doctor video, the first deck doctor, but I ran out of time and I'm really excited about it and I wanted to be able to give it the time I thought it deserved. So we're going to push it back to tomorrow. Today what we're going to do is we're going to go over my picks for seasonals, what I'm going to be bringing into the open rounds, why I'm bringing them, why I'm going through these card choices, and a little bit of insight on basically why I built this lineup this way and how I build lineups, period. If you're not familiar with me and the channel, welcome in. My name is MajiinBae. I'm a seasonal champion, world's top 16 contender, and I believe I'm tied for the most top cuts in seasonals, the most top 32s in the world, with a couple other people. So yeah, those are my credentials, I suppose. A little bit before we get into the individual decks, a bit of my philosophy on building lineups. I am a big proponent of bringing the strongest decks. I want to bring the best decks. I want them to be slightly synergistic, and I want to just bring strong stuff, and I want to dare my opponent to beat it. That's like kind of how I like to do it, especially in open rounds. It changes a little bit the closer you get to like a top cut, right? So a deck that or a lineup I would bring to open rounds, I would not bring to top 32. Like I think this is the single best lineup for the open rounds and seasonals. I would never bring this to a top cut. It's just a different kind of meta, because you're trying to gain your edge with your lineup, whereas in open rounds I'm trying to gain an edge with my play. I believe myself to be much better than, or at least quite a bit better than, most of the people in seasonals, and so I pick the decks that give me a lot of play, that I'm very comfortable with, and possibly that I'll see a lot of mirrors in. And that's kind of how I approach it. So real quick, the three decks, in case you just want to know what the decks are, then you can leave, are Zoe Lee Sin, Pantheon Shyvana, and Ari Kennen Go Hard. Starting with Zoe Lee Sin. This is a deck I'm very, very comfortable on. It won me a seasonals. It's like, I've played this in so many tournaments. It's ridiculous now. I'm very, very comfortable on this deck, and that is a very big deal for me. I lean very heavily towards comfort picks. If I have more experience on a deck than my opponent has playing against the deck, I automatically have an edge, right? And to take it a step further, if I have Lee Sin in my lineup and my opponent has Lee Sin in their lineup, and I think the Lee Sins are going to run into each other, right? They're not going to get banned. I automatically feel favored, right? It feels like a favored matchup for me. I have so much experience with this deck. I have so much experience in the mirrors that it almost becomes a favorable matchup. I expect to lose a Lee Sin mirror less than I expect to lose like an actual really good matchup on a different deck. So like I said, leaning very heavily on comfort, here is Zoe Lee Sin. You're going to notice some weird things about this deck though. One, there's only 2 Eye of the Dragon, and that is not standard. People really like to bring 3. You bring 3 Eye, 3 Gifts from Beyond, and that's your 6 Eye of the Dragon package. However, we can trim 1 Eye of the Dragon and still make use of the package, right? Like, we don't actually have to have all 3 eyes, because Crescendo is going to find them wherever. I actually don't like to draw Eye of the Dragon. If I have Eye of the Dragon and Gifts from Beyond in my opening hand, I'll just mulligan Eye of the Dragon and keep Gifts from Beyond, because it's 2 spells towards Lee Sin. It levels up your Zoe faster, and it makes Eye of the Dragon come out already pre-procced, I guess, preloaded with the 2 spells cast, and I value that way higher. So we trimmed 1 to find room elsewhere. I would not recommend this if you have not put a lot of time into the deck. This is something you have to be very cognizant of while you're playing. Like, oh, I only have 2 Eye of the Dragon, right? And I need it to get through this matchup or whatever. You need to be a little more experienced, I think, before you take that leap. There's 2 copies of Solari Priestess and 2 copies of Wounded White Flame. The Wounded White Flame are there because we expect to play against scouts with this deck. I think a lot of the lineups that want to play against my Lee Sin and possibly want to play against my Ari Kennen are going to be scouts. And that's something that will come up a lot in this video and in all my lineups and stuff, is that I'm not just taking into consideration, okay, what does Zoe Lee want to play against? What does Zoe Lee not want to play against? I'm taking into consideration what it actually is going to end up playing against, right? Like, this deck is terrible into Ari Kennen, but I'm never going to play against Ari Kennen because it's my #1 ban. So why tech it for Ari Kennen, right? I played Darkness in a tournament today with the same concept. I am not going to play against Ari Kennen with my lineup, so I tuned Darkness heavy in the other direction with lots of Vengeances and Mini Morphs and Ruinations and things like that. and cut a lot of the whales. I wasn't playing the box, those kind of things, you know? And so what I expect to play against with Lee Sin is scouts and control, because aggro needs to ban my Lee Sin. Things like spiders, things like pirates, they suffer really hard against the 6 Eye of the Dragon package, 5 here, but still, they suffer very much against Lee Sin, so I expect that to get banned first. Any lineup that's bringing spiders and pirates is looking to beat my Ari Kennen, right? And so they're not going to ban it, they're going to use their ban on my Zoe Lee Sin. So what we do is we polarize a bit. We have the Wounded White Flames that are very good against scouts. Then everything else is going to help us against control. Notify, cut. 0 copies of Notify. Again, not very good against scouts, not very good against these big control decks. What I need is denies, I need comets from Priestess, and I need possibly like Traveler or Written in the Stars, right? These big swingy cards. So we are including those. There's only 1 Hush because it's not very good right now. The triple Zenith Blade instead of the 2 I used to run because it's really good with Wounded White Flame. And I did shave 1 Deep Mend. I am on 1 copy of Will of Ionia because I like the flexibility. And it's really nice to have against a lot of matchups, specifically Pantheon, which we are soft targeting. We're soft targeting Demacia, mid-range Demacia, with this lineup. And also a lot of times against things like Darkness, you will bounce your own unit to stop the Darkness from hitting, keep Veigar from leveling, that kind of stuff. Yeah, I think Zoe Lee is one of the best picks in the meta at the moment. It's just really good once you can ban Ari Kennen. And like I said, I'm very comfortable on it. I expect to see a lot of Pantheon, and I expect to see a lot of Yordle arms, and this deck does very good into both of those. All right, moving on to the next one, we have Pantheon Shyvana. You know what? We'll come back to that. We're gonna go Ari Kennen first, because Ari Kennen Lee Sin is the core. It's the two deck core of this lineup, and Pantheon Shyvana kind of slots in for reasons we'll get to later. But I am on Ari Kennen, and basically anybody who wants to win the game should be playing Ari Kennen this seasonal. If you're not bringing Ari Kennen, you better have a really good explanation, and if you're not banning Ari Kennen, you better have an even better one. I'm bringing Ari Kennen. I'm bringing Ari Kennen that is incredibly good in the mirror. I am incredibly good in the mirror. I'm still banning Ari Kennen, right? Like, it's so good. It's so good. I am on the Go Hard version of Ari Kennen, and I know a lot of people immediately think, oh, you play the Go Hard one because it's better in the mirror. And yeah, that's true, but this version is incredible versus control. What it does is it flips the matchups. Darkness and Field Rush that are tuned against Ari Kennen are quite favored. But Darkness and Field Rush tuned for whatever you want against this particular version of Ari Kennen is very unfavored, in my opinion. If the Ari Kennen pilot is experienced and knows how to play the matchup. What this deck does with the two seedlings, the 3 sign-ins, and the 3 copies of Go Hard is kind of abandon the Ari OTK plan. You just kind of, if it's there, you take it, right? But the threat of it's going to keep your opponent on the back foot. You're gonna have to deal with a lot of your units. But the real way you win the game is that you loop sign-in with Seedling. You loop sign-in with Seedling, and you cast Pack Your Bags multiple times, and you kill your opponent. And it's that simple, and it's that good. The reason I'm not running like 3 Deny, and I am running 3 Notify, I also cut 1 Conspirator, is because I have to consider what am I going to play against with my Ari Kennen. All Demacia decks are going to ban it, right? Things like that, they don't want to play against it. What I am going to see is things like spiders, things like pirates, because they're going to be banning my Lee Sin, and then the hard control decks that are teched for Ari Kennen. Notify is very, very good in all those matchups. Conspirator can be a little slow, and I don't believe I need the help in the control matchups because I have the sign-in Seedling combo. This is my favorite deck this season. Anytime people don't ban it, I think it's a mistake. Like, I almost feel like they're giving me a free round. It's insanely powerful, and you should come prepared to any tournament right now in this format to deal with Ari Kennen. And it should probably be just banned. I'm just gonna let you know. So what this I mentioned it was like a combo with Zoe Lee, and what this does is it forms the double Ionia shell that is very good against things like Sivir Akshan and Pantheon. Sivir Akshan and Pantheon I expect to be incredibly popular, and neither one of them want to play against either of these 2 decks. So what we do is we have this strong core, right, that beats these middle of the line Demacia decks. You also beat Yordle and Arms pretty good. And what I want is a third deck that wants to complement that and ban Ari Kennen, because that's what I want to do to protect my Lee Sin. And that deck happens to be Pantheon Shyvana. The reason I'm on Pantheon Shyvana instead of the Taric version is because I want to play against the Demacia decks, right? And Taric very much shines against control where I don't feel I need the help. I think Shyvana Pantheon is plenty fine against control. It's less good, but it's still good. A little bit better against aggro, but where it really shines is in these mid-range mirrors-esque things, you know, Auction Sivir, the Pantheon mirrors, Yordle Arms, anything that's trying to get on the board. Pirates. The Shyvana version is just better equipped to deal with that because Shyvana is so good at controlling the board, and the Dragon's package just gets big. It blocks very well. You get to play more combat spells. I just really like this version, and I want to be favored into the Pantheon mirror. We have a couple interesting choices here. We're on 1 Fleet Feather Tracker, 2 Brightsteel Protector. That's because I need more units to play early. Brightsteel Protector is so incredibly strong in these Demacia mirrors, and I would love to play 3. However, I felt I was getting a little ran over by the aggressive decks. The decks like Spiders. These decks are going to ban my Lee Sin and look to take advantage of my Pantheon and my Ari Kennen. So I want it to be a little more teched for that. That's another reason why you see 3 Guiding Touch and only 1 Pale Cascade. Because yeah, Pale Cascade is like arguably the way better card, but with the matchups I expect to see, I want the healing for my units against the AoE control decks, right? Like FTR and Darkness, and I want the healing for my face because my opponents are going to throw Nocturne Fervors at me. I don't expect to play a lot of matchups where Pale Cascade is like super necessary. So yeah, we lean more towards Guiding Touch. I do have the 3 singles and the 1 Strafing Strike. I just wanted the extra strike spell. 2 copies of Concerted Strike. Oh, excuse me. 2 copies of Concerted Strike. I almost went to 3 because I'm not going to ban Lee Sin, and Concerted Strike is like the best card in these Demacia decks against Lee Sin. But decided against it. It was a little too clunky. I was just going to lean on my expertise as a Lee Sin player to hopefully get me through those matchups. The one of Chain Vest has been absolutely nuts for me. It's been so incredibly good. So good that I almost went to 2. But we're only playing 1 here because I think it might get clunky. Drawing 2 would be horrendous. We're only playing 2 copies of Screeching Dragon because that card is very clunky. A 5 mana is so much to spend on this deck that wants to be low to the ground and then back it up with spells. If you have to spend the 5 mana, then you can't back it up with spells because you just spent all your mana. Also, drawing it off Dragon's Clutch when all you really want is Shyvana and Wounded Whiteflame feels really bad. Dragon's Clutch, another reason to be on the Shyvana version over the Taric version. Yes, you lose access to Zenith Blade, but Dragon's Clutch is really... It's really, really good, guys. It's a really good card. Yeah, so that's the lineup. Like I said, it's looking to ban Ari Kennen, take advantage of these mid-range Demacia decks, and honestly be just the strongest 3 decks around. Like, these are just, when you remove Ari Kennen from the equation, there are almost 0 decks that are just pound for pound stronger than the 3 that I bought. And 3 that I brought, and that was kind of the whole plan for the lineup, right? I think it will serve me well. Like I said, I am pretty high up on the ladder, so I think I said that. So I can go 7-2 this seasonal and still make it into top cut. I'm really excited about it. I'm feeling very, very good. Yeah, that's my lineup. If you have any questions about tournament lineups or your lineup in particular, maybe you want to run a suggestion by me, the best place to do that is the Mastering Runeterra Discord. I would just go to the Mastering Runeterra site. We have a lot of cool stuff on there. Little bit of a plug here. My personal favorite being the matchup table, where you see the spreadsheet with all the matchups in it, and my personal favorite, the best of 3 ban helper, where it shows your lineups matchup against your opponent's lineup matchup. You're playing a tournament, and I think we have a lot of people on this right now. That's why it's going so slow. If you're playing a tournament, you can put in your decks, your opponent's decks. I'm just picking random stuff, and you can see how they match up, and it's going to give you the data, and then it's going to give you a suggested ban. Now, I would put a little less weight on this and a lot more weight on this because all it is information. It doesn't take into account what your opponent's going to ban. It's data. It doesn't understand game theory, right? But this can be incredibly helpful, especially if you're not super familiar with how all the matchups work, right? If you're new to the competitive scene, you're new to the the Riot Lock format, this can be so helpful, and it's a really cool tool. Again, MasteringRuneterra.com, best of 3 band helper. Check it out. Like I said, if you have any questions about tournaments or lineups, Mastering Runeterra Discord, you can also put them in the comment section. I do read all the comments. And yeah, that's all I got. Thank you guys so much for coming. I will be streaming seasonals on my Twitch channel, MajiinBae LOR, twitch.tv. Come check it out. That'll be on Saturday. Yeah, thank you guys so much for coming. I'll see you next time.